Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy to see you guys. First beanie of the year because it's 52 degrees and
Ooh.
dropping. It's actually snowing in the mountains right now. It'll be 80 tomorrow or the next day. So it's not, it just does what it does. A little up and down, a little aggressiveness. We're going to say hi as you guys are coming in. I'm going to scroll through the names. I missed the first one though. Uh-oh. Julia Stanley. Damn, if you know. I feel like that's a great handle. Austin, Venezuela Williams, Alicia, James, which actually is that my uncle? Amanda, the Cube app. I do have an
Oh, and
uncle.
Anna's in the house. What's up, Anna?
Yeah.
Hey, Anna. Wamo, Marcus, Dr. Lucky, Tracy, Melissa, Dr. Tiff's community, Diane Caldwell. If you guys could also do us a favor as people are coming in, if you could share on that share button in the right hand corner of the app, that would be great. We are really, really working hard to try and be in community with at least 100 people this evening. We'll see how it goes. We've been getting so close, but we're just not quite like hitting the number. Hi, Diane. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Corey.
Every week. My name's Corey Gomes. I'm the founder of the Black Podcast Association. I also run the newsletter right here on Substack called blackpodnews.com or BLK Pod News. Also a sitting board member of Air Media. And I feel like I'm forgetting something, but that's what y'all gonna get tonight.
He
Oh,
wears a lot of hats.
I'm a co-owner of Press Record Studios based out of Long Island, New York. And I'll take those are gonna be the hats I wear tonight.
Okay. Okay. So, excuse me. Hi, Halleck. All right. So, hi, my name is Michelle Jackson. Like Corey and Angela, I wear a lot of different hats, but I am the founder of Creators Getting Paid, where I basically ask content creators how they make money with their brands. I have some really cool interviews finally coming because I have been tinkering with creators getting paid on the back end, and that'll be a conversation for another day. But I'm super excited about that. I also have decided, and these two don't know this, I am actually still going to pause Your American Money. I am still pausing that. Things are just a little too busy with creators getting paid. So I have more than one project, and we've talked about being multi-passionate and having multiple projects, and sometimes you have to kind of pause certain things. So Angela, what's up?
Hey, everybody. My name is Angela Hollowell. I am the writer of two newsletters, one of which is called Please Hustle Responsibly, which is a community for creators and entrepreneurs who are looking to learn, connect, and grow. The second one is called Melanin MVP, which is for women's sports fans and everyday athletes. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on a Tuesday evening. Hopefully, you're feeling good in a nice temperature controlled environment. And you've had a little something to eat. You're joining us, with a full stomach, full heart, open mind as we dive into today's topic.
So one of the things that I think about often, and
Yeah, how
Marcus,
dare you? How
I
dare
don't
you?
know. You
How
know
dare
what?
you?
He like distracted the whole space. Let's
I'm
just
sorry.
say.
Oh,
um.
Liberty?
Oh my
Liberty are
lord,
out and they fired their head coach, so we can't even go
that's
there
so
today.
weird. That's not going to be the conversation, though. I thought it was weird because I thought she just won. Anyway, I'm going to focus. All right. So
Okay.
today we're going to talk about something that I find really interesting. I think it's a really interesting topic. A lot of creators are constantly doing this, which is they're consuming a lot of content, kind of like watching this live stream, but they aren't necessarily, oh my God, they aren't necessarily focusing on like sales and getting their stuff out. Like they're always in learning mode, or like consumption mode. And I want to just, I wanted to just talk about like how that, like how learning from content creators is good, but you still have to like do work. And there's this like weird like circular thing happening. So do you guys kind of know what I mean? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
There's a old saying. It's kind of like, as I mean, at some point you have to do it in order to learn it. So
Mm.
watching only probably leads to, for me, I've learned that it leads more to procrastination, uh, imposter syndrome, self doubt, and unfortunately, the only way you learn how to swim is you got to jump in the water. So and flail your arms and kick your legs and get a little water up your nose in order for you to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So um, that's where I'm at with it. I mean, especially since the way that content's produced and we're constantly just barrage with it, it's hard to like. I mean, you don't know what's going to work all the time. I mean, there's some fundamental stuff that we all should follow, but you keep consuming it, you start, and then the biggest thing I think for me, and I'll take this from the music side of things of being in my experience in music is that you start to copy what other people do, and it might not be natural to you, or might not fit what you're trying to do or the audience you're trying to attract. And I think that leads to burnout, and that also leads to people quitting eventually at some point because it's not working, because they're not realizing that you're taking somebody else's thing and trying to force it to work for you instead of figuring out what works for you.
Angela?
Yeah. I think honestly, this is the majority of people. Like people, um, now and even I would say in the past 5 to 7 years have been really drawn to personalities online and personal stories and personal brands. And that fundamentally is not going to change because we're humans and we want to connect with other humans and we want to see ourselves in other humans' stories. And I think that the copying comes in because we really want to create things that we're inspired by. So it's not inherently a bad thing. I think it becomes a bad thing when we don't realize that the things that we're inspired by are things that only those people could make. And so we're not allowing ourselves the opportunity to find what it is that only we can make. And you can only do that by learning and by iterating. I think that early attempts at copying are good and that like they give you an opportunity to learn from that person that you're trying to emulate, but ultimately like it's not going to come out the same. Hopefully you won't be too discouraged by that because you'll realize, okay, well, maybe that's not my way. Maybe that's not my style. Maybe that's not what works for me. But this part of it did work for me. So how can I do more of that? And how can I leverage more of my own personality, my own style, my own experience into something and make it really beautiful? And that can be really scary. That can be really vulnerable. I think that's also, again, like can put you in a loop of, well, I put my heart and soul into something I really care about and it got 3 likes. And it's like, well, are you doing it because you wanted 30 likes or are you doing it because it's something you really believe is important? And you just haven't figured out how to package it yet. So there's a couple of different ways you could take it. I think that any failure is feedback, but people don't even want to get to the failure part. Like they just want to daydream and idolize and desire and not really like act at times.
So do you guys remember that day that went like I kind of went off and I was like, everyone's content's so fucking boring. And I just like kind of went off, right? I was like, ah, and I was kind of specifically really focusing on the personal finance space because that's where I started uh, as a content creator. And but really stand by that sentiment. You can see that in my content. Like I've brought it up throughout the years. And I feel like um, I have definitely observed people spending a lot of time just just being really fearful of what they would perceive to be as, to your point, Angela, failure. Um, really fearful to take risks, really fearful of feedback, really fearful of like looking like they don't know what they're doing. Like no one wants to fall flat on their face. And I'm like, we've all done that because that's how we learn to walk. We've all done that. That's how we learn to talk. We've all done that because that's how, we learned to do whatever it is that we now have more than 10,000 hours doing. The three of us have been live streaming for almost just under a year now. We've been doing this since February. I want to say February, right?
Around there, yeah.
And it is now almost October. Next week's going to be October. That's a lot of time to be showing up. Not sure if people will show up to like even engage with us in conversation and community. And we've tried different things. We've tried different iterations of this. We've tested out different topics. Like we've played around with it. And I think part of why people consume so much content versus do if they're building a brand or, even if they're building products, that kind of thing, is there are a lot of us looking for a magic formula. And I think, unfortunately, with how online brand content is these days, you'll get a lot of copy around. These are the 6, 7 ways that I did XYZ, and you can do it too. You get a lot of that. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it confuses people about like what they're building overall, right? So like today, actually, I was walking around briefly because it was cold, and I was listening to Amy Porterfield's podcast that released today. I think it released today. Amy Porterfield's this huge, huge content creator. She used to have a show called Online Marketing Made Easy. She's now rebranded it to Amy Porterfield. And it was really interesting this episode because she was talking about she's known for helping people build coaches. And she was talking about how she started and like her whole like trajectory. And I've been listening to her for years, so I've heard variations of this conversation, but not like today, where she's like, I started this one, I sold this first course. Everyone knows that story. She shares a lot. But then she like went through the list of all the things that she tried and tried and tried and tried. It was wild to me actually discovering all these things that I wasn't familiar with that she's tried throughout the years. And she's like, I never would have, she put in all these reps, but she's like, I never would have the success that I do now if I hadn't failed with that first course that I should have probably launched, but I'm glad that I did because without it, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I bring that story up to say like, this idea that you're going to get it perfect and right out the gate is erroneous. It's wrong. It's not how it works. And in fact, like right now, I'm beta testing a course. There's only 4 people in it. I'm happy with that. You know why? Because things have come up, okay, including me changing the premise of the course because of how I think about things. And I'm like, ooh, I need to change this a little bit. Am I still selling the course? Yes. Am I glad it's a beta? Yes, because as I'm like working through certain things that I want to share with the students, things have come up that wouldn't have come up if I hadn't started the process. Is the course built out? Basically speaking, yes. Am I changing it and moving things? Yes, because it's not complete, but it's not going to be what it's going to be without the feedback and without testing things out. So,
I always like to say that, like, I love reading biographies and like watching movies about people, like how they got to where they got to. And I've always learned that people are enamored. They love the outcome, but they don't love the journey. And I'm like the
hmm,
opposite. I love learning about the journey. I don't, because I already know the outcome, right?
right.
I already know the outcome. I know how the story ends. But I'm like, how did this person get here? What did they do? What did they fail at? What did they make the mistakes? And then I try to pick up lessons in there for myself, or see if there's a connection to some things that I do. Sometimes I use that inspiration when I feel like I'm failing. Or and I think for me, one of the biggest reasons, and I remember when I first got started in this space, when I started the community, when COVID happened, my original business basically failed because of COVID. And then this door opened with the community. And for months I was sitting in limbo because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, I had this business model that got blown up. I had this community. I don't know what I'm doing with it yet. I don't know where I want it to go yet. And I was like, but I need to make some money. And my friend kept saying, well, you got all this experience now. You've done all these things. Get into consulting.
Mm,
But I didn't want to get into consulting because it was so much copycat and it was so so much grifting going on. Like, yo, start your podcast in 30 days and all of those things. And
Yeah.
as I met people who
Yeah.
did that stuff and was hearing their horror stories, I was like, I don't even want to be closely, remotely associated with that. So I stayed out of it for a while until I had a conversation with somebody and they were like, I want you to coach me. Right. And then that's how I started getting into to the coaching and getting into consulting. But just seeing things in music when I was in music in the early late 90s, early 2000s, and how when you see it a lot in the music, especially in the hip hop space, is when they hear when one person hears a story, of somebody successful, how they got successful, then everybody wants to copy it, and then what happens is the market gets saturated. Then then it becomes this thing, right? Like it becomes a joke, the butt of the jokes and stuff. Which is why I love what Cardi B did with the whole mixtape and the bootlegger thing, because it brought back memories of when people
Yeah.
used to do that. And I liked how she brought that back to remind people like this is how a lot of us got started. Um,
Mm.
so but I will say this from an audience perspective, you're driving people away because they're looking for something new, fresh, something different because they're getting inundated by these all these copycats. A lot of people. I'm gonna use Mr. Beast because I see a lot of people try to copy what he's done, and I'm like, but that's what he can do, right? Uh, you gotta like you might there's things to learn from it because he gives a lot of in his interviews he gives you some of the formula and the gems of what he's learned, but you got to learn to take that information and put it and give it to yourself in a way that you can create your own space. And I think we need to. I think a lot of people don't understand. There's a difference between influencing and copycatting, right? And there's only
Mm.
one person I know. In Angela's gonna laugh at this. This probably gonna spark a debate behind the scenes. There's
Oh
only
shit.
one person that I know who copied someone and became a Hall of Famer, and that was Kobe Bryant.
Hmm.
Who-
He literally copied Jordan so much that you could overlay it. I've seen videos you could overlay them on each other, and it's like literally the same person. And I mean, he got real. But there's also but here's the thing, right? I'm not going to take it away from Kobe, but there was a part
Mm.
of Kobe that even though he did that, there was a part of Kobe being in that. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Like
Mm.
even though Kobe might take the same shot, he may do a lot of the same moves that Jordan did and all that. You could tell there was Kobe was in there, especially certain key moments. So like like we call it killer instinct, in the dog or whatever, right? Like in a person, but yeah, we could say yeah he copied Jordan, but there was also moments where I was like that's Kobe, like playing on on Achilles heel, like that's Kobe Bryant. He did that. That's not him copying someone. So we have to. I think people need to understand when they see. I think a lot of it takes a lot of self checking too, right? You got to be self aware of yourself, and there comes a point where you got to realize, hold up, this other person is starting to become my identity, and I need to stop and figure out how to pivot. So
Um, do you think people are self-aware enough to be
no,
like, okay, uh, they're not even. So
that's why they're
how
not
do you
receptive to feedback.
avoid?
They're not. That's why they're not receptive to feedback. They're not receptive to opinions. They take things very personal. They become very headstrong.
Mm.
Y'all know how I am when I talk to people. It's
Mm.
kind of like, yo, like that's dumb. Like, and then they get all defensive, and it's like you're not listening to the feedback that somebody's trying to give you. See, I think you have a great idea. I just think you're executing it wrong. And it's like,
Mm.
well, like, and like the one I used to always hate was like, well, it's my show. If they don't like it, then I'll just, they could just move on. And I'm sitting here like, but bro, you got like 5 listeners. Like, you can't afford to lose anybody right now. So, to answer your question, I think if you work like just in general in life, if you are self aware, you'd realize where you're making your mistake, and you be able to differentiate where the world is maybe not it's not the world is being critical, where you're making a mistake, and when somebody's like being judgmental or hating on you. So like you'd be able to at least figure out. You might not be able to 100% correct with it, but you'd be able to be like, I don't know, that doesn't sound like it's really critical or it's really like positive feedback. So
So I want to jump in here real quick about the feedback piece. I think, and I noticed this when I first went full time, like there's a lot of people that are going to want to give you advice or feedback or opinions, share their opinions on how you're approaching what it is that you do. And it definitely takes a level of discernment to understand like what feedback is helpful and what feedback is maybe not so helpful. And I could write a book about this, but like creating the conditions for like helpful feedback and like constructive criticism are really, really important. I think some people will say, well, don't, don't accept criticism from someone who's not where you want to be. Not 100%. I don't think that's great advice, if I'm being honest. I think like the better question is like, who are the people that are in the closest position to me? So like, for example, there was a podcaster, and y'all probably remember this. This is back when people were like using Twitter. So like pre-Elon. And there was a podcaster who was like, here's how to get a profitable podcast. And the first thing they said was take out a $60,000 loan to pay
Whoa.
yourself for. Yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah.
Girl, no.
So here's the thing. They can say take out a $60,000 loan when they are married with a partner in a home that they own, so they don't have bills for real, and like they are on their wife's insurance, and like they're taken care of whether this works or not. Like that's just not advice you can take to heart, right? That doesn't mean that person doesn't have anything to teach to teach you. It just means that part of their
Yeah.
story is not relevant for you specifically. You understand? And I think what they basically were saying was that they took out a $60,000 loan so they didn't have to worry about their bills and so they could pour everything into making the best possible show they could make and finding ways to monetize said show so that they could begin to pay back that $60,000 loan after a certain amount of time. Again, not relevant for everybody. Most people probably not relevant for. Matt D'Avella, one of my biggest inspirations on YouTube. The premise of his YouTube like masterclass course is for you to not work for 2 months while you put everything into YouTube. That is just not feasible for most people. He was able to do that because he was married, to his wife, on his wife's insurance, and a house his parents owned. That's not everybody's story. Um, and so I think like for me, like even stuff as simple as insurance, I would ask people about health insurance. They'd be like, oh, when I went full time, I was on my partner's health insurance. You cannot help me. This is not
Right.
helpful. You are not the person to be telling me to tell anybody to go full time if they don't have the same conditions that you have. Or even get in a house. They were like, oh, I was, 20 years into my career, so I already had a house. That's not me.
I had a 401k that I could borrow against. I had,
Right. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I could do all that. Like, I was 26. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of that stuff applied to me. So when I started to see like, oh, these people are not in the position that I'm in, like, but they are doing the things that I maybe want to do. What are some ways that I can still learn from them? And part of that came out through the podcast. Part of that came out through me just understanding how to ask better questions. Right. So instead of saying, well, what do you do for health insurance? What do you do for, house? How did you prepare for all those things? Sometimes I'll ask, have you hired anyone? What do you look for in a hire? What was your hiring process like? Um, or when it comes to quoting and making prices and scope of work, like thinking about how do you think about creating a scope of work for a project with these details? What are some things that you would put in the contract to protect yourself? How can I continue to justify increasing my prices year over year over year? Those type of things that you start to think about. At what point should I start thinking about outsourcing? How much should I allocate for outsourcing before I try to pay someone? Like, how does that work? So I think part of it is like people not asking deeper questions because they don't want deeper answers. They
Mhm.
just want that little secret sauce or that little like trick that's going to get them from like zero to I'm making 6, 7 figures and I live on a beach and I write with my laptop open and no worries. Like they want that, but they don't want the like, oh, well, I tried this and I failed. So what I ended up doing was this, this, and this because I knew I needed to be sustainable. Like certain things like that. But again, I think those are harder conversations that people don't really like because they don't fit into a neat box. And the people they get the information from also don't fit into probably a similar box as them. So food
It,
for
ru-
thought, anybody
it
listening.
ruins the fantasy. It ruins the
Yeah.
fantasy.
Oof.
Yeah.
I also think that with one of the things that I feel is so confusing or frustrating about building a brand online, entrepreneurial, like pursuing some sort of entrepreneurship online, is that every single person's project is inherently different, right? And so there might be things that are similar, like we'll say, I build a list, maybe you want to grow a community, maybe you don't. Like do you want to have physical products? Maybe you want digital. Do you want products at all? Do you want to be focused on, like, there's all these different variables. And I think um because there are all those variables, you have to test things out. Like you can't figure out what works best for you if you don't step out on faith. Part of it's just stepping out on faith. By the way, I want to say hi to Willie, Danielle, Leah, Caitlin, Drea, Anthony, because I saw you guys come in. So hi everybody. I feel like there's just this lack of like there's no just I'm gonna step out and just see what happens. And I feel like it's like that movie. There's always a lot of movies where the characters are on the cliff, and they're supposed to cross like this chasm, this valley. And in order to cross, they have to step, and they're like, we don't see the path. And so they're like, but it's there. And the character, I don't know what movie, there's one movie I'm really thinking of. They throw some like sand in front of them and it illuminates the path, right? There's like these little flecks of sand that lands
It's
on
talking about
there.
Indiana Jones and Last Crusade.
It might be Indiana Jones and maybe like 80
When he was
other
over the bridge
movies.
and they thought it was going to fall in the chasm, and he took the sand and he threw it over the bridge.
Apparently, that's one of the movies, okay, people? So, and then he made it across. But I feel like still a good example. I feel
It was
like
a step of
that
faith. It was a step of faith.
it's a step of faith, right? Like it feels so scary. And I'm gonna tell you, hands down, the most frustrating conversation that I have with people is why they won't try. It drives me fucking crazy. I don't understand why people won't try. And I think partly because people, when we're encouraging people to try a thing, a lot of times I think they think we're expecting them to do this massive thing, right? And I'm like, no, I want you to try a little thing. Just try something small, because you can't grow. Like, I don't want you to launch a course and tomorrow make 100 grand. You will not be prepared for
You don't
that.
want that for
You
me,
will
Michelle?
you I want you to make, no, listen, but you've been in it for years. That's
Okay.
different.
Get out of here.
I want people, you know what I mean? Like, I want you to start small so that you know about customer service, so that you know like what you would do to help people, so that you know that the mistakes that you made, so that you can have language to even address a client. Like today, I had someone email me and it felt a little abrupt. I was like, what in the world? And they're like, Michelle, could you take me off this da 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 da? And I was like, what? Because it was a tool that I haven't used for years. I still pay for it, but I'm not using it right now. Um, there's a reason why, and I'm about to use it again. But I emailed instead of taking it personally or whatever, because I felt like it was a little intense, the language, but I felt like maybe they were just typing fast. And I typed back. Like, this was all within a few minutes. I was like, hey, um, I haven't used this. Why are you getting messages? Like, what's going on? Right? They emailed me back later, like, yeah, like actually I am getting messages for something that I didn't complete. So now I'm like, oh shit. Like, I have all these things that I've tested out, that I've built out. And I'm like, have I been emailing people accidentally that they haven't finished? Oh shit. So I'm going to go in and like make sure whatever that like toggle that needs to be toggled so that people aren't being emailed and irritated. Like, there's just things you don't know until you do. And so, I don't want for people to ever hear that when we encourage you to try, that we're trying to get you to try beyond what is comfortable for you and what feels safe actually for you. What we want, excuse me, is for you to believe in yourself to take the first step. That's it. Creators, if they're aligned right with you, will hold your hand or be in community or cheer you on. And then you learn. And then you build up that little like resilience, like, oh shit, I did that. I only sold like two, but damn, I did that. And then you do it again and you're like, oh shit, I sold 54 because you learned from the two. That's the whole point. But I feel like, again, I've observed it for years where people just, you know, they are consuming so much content that it also takes up the time that they would need to even do the thing that they imagine and dream of themselves doing. Hi, brothers. Hi, Anne. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the other reason why I'm talking about this. There's a whole trend of people who are going off social media. They're just like so over it. I would be considered pretty social media light, except for I'm weirdly active on Threads because I enjoy it. Hi, Curtis. And so, but the amount of time that I have because I'm not futzing around on all these different platforms is part of the reason why I do so much work is because I'm not worried that I'm missing out on something. What I'm worried about is how can I build out and develop a community and a space and a brand that serves the people that I'm trying to serve. I cannot keep up with all the changes in AI. I don't have time for that. I cannot keep up with TikTok and all this stuff. I am not interested. I cannot, like, when I have the time, when all the development of my products and services are done, then I will tool around with these things. But I don't have time like that to be chronically online, chronically, just attending every workshop, that kind of thing. I think it's 100% fine, by the way, obviously, to do those things. It's just maybe some guardrails around how that looks for you so that the goals that you have in mind for what you're trying to develop, you can stay true to that and stay focused and not get derailed. You know what I mean? And I think for me, having like really like I like YouTube. I am hardly ever on YouTube. And I actually really do like YouTube. I enjoy it. I'm never on it. I am too busy. I am never on it. I used to like TikTok, but we already talked about how I can't figure out who the people are because then it's too much and too much content being fed at me. So I've been off TikTok for 3 years.
Well, it's
At
about to
this, almost
change.
3 years. No, I don't want to be on it. I'm
Y-
once well, I don't miss what's done. Like I'm one of those people. I'm kind of cold like this. Once I'm over something, I'm done. Like once I don't miss it. Just like I don't miss Florida. Like once I cut you off, you're gone. So I think this idea that you have to show up everywhere also is not true. Like I don't have to do anything I don't want to. I only have so much energy, guys. I'm just saying.
I want to address a couple things you said. I want to
Okay.
address because you talked about fear, and
Mm,
fear is a mofo, right?
mm,
Fear is definitely something that I'm learning to be a little bit more understanding of fear when it comes to people because I get it, right? Like it's like w- I realize that a lot of us grow up in culture where fear is considered your fear is coming from from failure, and failure is not considered successful. But
no.
you learn more lessons from failure than you do from success, right? Success tends to breed complacency, arrogance, drive egos, and stuff like that. And that's why they would say that saying, that's when you're gonna fall harder than you went up, right? So it's like
Mm,
because those are those components where you're not listening, you're not on you get lazy. So I think sometimes we have to understand, like, even though we get frustrated when we hear sometimes when people like what are you afraid of? Like I think some of us are also like we've all made so many mistakes that, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost kind of like I get a little concerned if there isn't a failure. Like I
mhm,
kind of like, okay, something's about to happen. Like, because it's like, because that's where that's where we've learned to get our feedback from that. So if something's going too smoothly and it's functioning
mhm,
too well, I kind of get a little cautious and like, all right, I mean, I'm happy that this is working, but I need a
mhm,
bump in the road. Like when you say you get that email, right? Like sometimes I get an email from somebody like, I take me off the list. And I'm like, well, bro, like
mhm.
here's how to subscribe, right? That to some people that might be like they might take it personal. To me, that's like, okay,
Yeah.
do I really want to investigate this and find out why they want to leave, or do I just be like, okay, go right ahead, right? And that's the discernment we're talking about. I've become so used to it now because I've learned that this is just part of the process. There's going to be people that they're going to be supported. This is going, it may not work for them anymore. Whatever the reason, that's fine. They went out. They need my help. Here you go, right? Because I need to concentrate on the people who are here, right? But I think the fear thing comes from the trauma that and it starts from when we're kids, right? How person's family treated them when they messed up or made a mistake. Like you mentioned when we were little kids, and when you first learning how to walk and you keep falling, right? I work with little children, and I see them all day learning how to walk, and there's no fear. They're like completely fearless. They fall in their face, they get right back up and keep trying for the next 2 hours, trying to keep doing this thing until they finally get it. And I think we lose that part because life and culture and society comes in the way and just guts punch you with it. So I try to figure out now, like, how do we mitigate the fear? Um, I personally do think, and I know you said, what was it you said about, like, I personally want people to fail because one, it's a reality check. Two, it's a learning opportunity, and especially as a like somebody who might be coaching or consulting with someone, it's an opportunity for me to help them. Ask a lesson that my friend likes to always ask me when I mess up. What did you learn? Right? He does it condescendingly, but like, what did you learn? Let's talk about it. Right? Um, he does it because I kind of make the same mistake all the time, right? And I get egotistical about it at times because I know what he's gonna say, so I push back. But it's a good question. What did you learn? And let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about the data. Let's talk about the feedback. Let's talk about what were some people saying to you. Maybe there's a pattern here that because you're so emotionally connected, you're not listening to. So let me help you figure it out, right? So that's where I'm like sometimes probably some people are going to hear this conversation on a replay or down the road, and they'll be like, "Who was Corey, and what did you do with him? What was this Corey? What did you do with him?" Right? But I learned that from playing. I think so. Sometimes when I ask people questions, when I consult, I ask them questions. Did you play sports? Did you grow up in a household with siblings? Like I start asking because it's also those are character developing um situations or trauma creating situations, depending, right? Like it's like you getting bullied by all your siblings. There's going to be trauma here that's going to come into this thing that you're trying to build. And I'm not just a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but we need to at least be aware of it and be able to at least address it so that when you're ready, I could be like, you need to go talk to your therapist about that, right? Like you need to get a therapist. But that I want to say another part of this conversation, because even though you mentioned TikTok, now this is not going to be a conversation about TikTok, but TikTok has got some big changes coming, and we had the
Yeah.
Trump administration saying the algorithm's going to change. So for those people who were copying what other people are doing, they're about to have a serious reality check when this new TikTok comes out, and their whole business model of whatever way they were generating income off of TikTok is going to get blown up. And part of that is I wish more people were like you, Michelle, where they're like, this is cool, and I'm glad with all success I'm having over here, but I need to figure out how to get you over here where I have more control no matter what. And I think when people are watching people on other platforms and watching how they create their content, they're forgetting that at any moment, these platforms can change. They could pivot the direction on how they want to, of their app. The Instagram tomorrow could decide we're not doing this anymore. We're going to take this, we're going to shut this app, we're going to sunset this app, or we're going to change direction of what this app is completely. We're seeing what happened with TikTok. It's being brought out by American companies, heavily influenced by the American government. Who knows what's going to come of that? But I know whatever success and joy you was having on TikTok today ain't going to be the
It's gone.
same. It's going to be completely gone. And if you were relying on
Yeah.
TikTok as one of your sole platforms, you're about to learn a hard lesson about putting all your eggs in one basket. And some of that also comes from just listening to coaches and copying these frameworks or copying other content creators and saying, oh, no, because a lot of these content creators, they do low hanging fruit content to get you to make $100,000 and purchase their course. So like you gotta be real careful on that stuff. So that's my points that I wanted to make.
I want to share like a random quote that I always think about around fear, but you have to be like a real geek to get this. Okay, so this is like the geekiest thing I'm about to do. Who has watched Dune?
Fear is
Anyone?
the mind killer. I should not.
Fe-
That's
I'm
what
gonna
my.
read it. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Wait, where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Now, this is the geekiest thing ever. However, this is the moment where Paul Atreides has his hand in that box, if you've seen the movie, and if he moves, it will kill him. He just has to just try or he's dead. There's no like in between, right?
That's the
And I feel
1984
like
version. That's the 1984 version. The new version, it was
I'm
his
fine
mom
with
doing
that.
it.
Well, you are geekier than I am. I love
That's my
it.
favorite movie. I love
So,
it. That's,
oh really? Oh, that's hilarious.
yeah.
So the thing that I want to say is if you as a creator try something new, you won't that is the opposite experience that you're going to have. You're going to be afraid, you're going to be scared, but it's not going to do anything. If you're, like trying to sell a digital item and no one buys it, you're good. It's okay if no one buys it. It might be irritating. You might be frustrated with the lost hours, but to Corey's point, you're going to learn something from that experience. Now, I do think it'd be interesting to talk about like what does our content consumption look like? It could be other creators, it could be television, it could be streaming. Like what are we doing? Cuz I know that we all consume content in our different ways. So I want to share like what does that look like and how do we have entertainment, education and safeguard the work that we're doing all at the same time. So
Actually, with
Angela,
that,
how about you?
I'm
No,
pleading the
no,
fifth.
no. We're gonna share it. We're gonna share it. At least a part. At least a part.
Uh, Content creation. I consume a decent amount of YouTube. Uh, some Netflix, some Hulu, obviously. I've been on Threads a lot as well. A lot of like women's sports folks are on Threads. So a lot of really in Threads. What drew me to Threads honestly was like it felt like there was like a golden moment of Twitter where we had like spaces. They introduced portrait mode for photos. They had it where you could post photo and video on the same post. And there was like threads and long form writing. And that's what Threads felt like for a minute there when I was on it earlier on. Just a really nice minimal interface, like no ads. It was great. And so I follow a lot of like photographers on Threads. I really love that platform for photographers. And I also should post more of my photography on there, but that's another story for another day. Um, I, s- I hesitate to say Instagram because it's not like something I actively just like scroll through. Um, Instagram, and I mean this for like years. I'm talking like since the 2010s. Like, so when I was first using it, when they first introduced the Explore tab, at first it was kind of like this thing I didn't care about, but eventually, whatever they did to the algorithm on the Explore page, that bad boy has me dialed. Do you hear me? Like, dialed in. The type of people I'm attracted to, the type of art that I would like.
Mhm.
Yeah, the type of news media that I would want to like it has me dialed. I know I'm going to see at least one thirst trap specifically for me,
I love it.
one carousel that I'm going to love, one video that I'm going to love every time I get on the Instagram Explore page. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Instagram Explore page has me in a chokehold. Not so much like scrolling in my feed, but definitely the Explore page is kind of is my bag. And that, but even that's like rare. That's not even an everyday thing for me. I'm not a big Instagrammer, if that's a thing. Um, so yeah, a lot of my time gets spent on like YouTube. And I would even say occasionally now that like being a LinkedIn creator is a thing, occasionally I'll see something on LinkedIn that I'm like, I should actually try that. You know what I mean? But that's even rarer, you know? Twitter, I don't really scroll Twitter anymore, honestly. There's like a decent sized like beehive community that's on Twitter. So every once in a while I'll post something about beehive on Twitter and like scroll for 2 seconds and then get back off. Because there's also still some women's sports media that's comes to Twitter first that I
Yeah.
don't see on Threads. Not everybody has migrated to Threads yet. And that includes a lot of like the current players of like the NWSL and WNBA and things like that. A lot of them are still on like Twitter. Um, so there's that. So that's generally my content consumption. That's not even including written. So I also have my email app that I use is called Hey. And so it allows me to put newsletters in what they call the feed. So sometimes I'll just scroll, like typically on Saturdays, I'll just scroll my feed and go through my newsletters for the week. And that's a form of content consumption for me. I like to read that way. And then like not as often as I should. This is probably like whenever I take a bath. So I'm like sitting down and just like soaking and relaxing. I'll go through my Substack saved feed and I'll like read articles that way. But that to me, again, that's like such a time intensive thing. Like I really want to be present for those articles as well. Same thing with like my feed of newsletters that I actually subscribe to. Corey's face is like, what in the hell?
I'm trying to figure out where y'all find all the hours for all this. I'm sitting here like, where, like, blink my eyes tomorrow. Like, where did y'all find? Where do you find time for this? I'm beating myself up because I can't even read one page in a book right now, and I'm like,
You can
jeez.
listen to Substack articles. I know I've done that
I
occasionally,
don't
but I'm gonna
like
be
it.
real. I've done it by
I don't
accident,
like it.
Danielle. I didn't do it on purpose. And the only ones that I listen to are the ones that are like the way that I do audio newsletters, which is where I will actually take the time to record my voice reading it.
Yeah.
I don't do the automated like AI generated audio things. That's not the same experience. It's just not like I feel like if you're going to listen to something I read or written, no, what are words? Something I wrote, then it needs to be in like my voice so you can like hear how I'm thinking about the what I'm writing. You know, you can hear my intonation and like how I want you to maybe read it in your head. So that's my little content consumption. I think that's all of it.
I'm gonna share mine real quick because I feel like it's more and less in a different way. So, in the past, I have really liked Instagram. I know I very rarely like I have Instagram feeds, what have you. I still like to pop into my Colorado Instagram, but I'm not a person you would consider active on Instagram anymore. I'm like, once I'm kind of done with something, I never go back. That's kind of a harsh thing. YouTube, same thing. I like YouTube, but I could see myself actually going back for YouTube because I think there's some interesting things that are happening, but it's like whatever. Um,
I
Tik
just think it's cool to be a
TikTok,
YouTuber.
um, that okay,
Now that you think that
TikTok.
for you.
I'm like never gonna. I would be shocked if I ever went back to TikTok. It's too much. Um, Twitter, I kicked them to the curb in November of last year, and I don't miss them at all, and I'll never go back. Period. End of story. Threads is really interesting. I really enjoy it. It's very good at geolocating people. I just really like the people in my feed. I've met people. I actually met someone this week who I was, no, was it? It was last week at an event. We have an event called Colorado Startup Week, and I made a comment and introduced myself, and this lovely, lovely soul in the audience was like, "Oh my god, I follow you on Threads," and blah, 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 and it was like this coolest thing ever. So Threads is interesting because I've met people, especially from Colorado, quite often safely in person. So I enjoy Threads. Threads is interesting to me because it's very hard to share threads with you know how like at the end of like in blogging at the end of the page you could like click to share on Twitter, click to share it so and so and whatever. You can't click post to go to Threads. Like there's still that's not integrated into a lot of those share buttons, and it's so interesting to me that Meta is like, oh well. Like I'm like,
Wait,
are
from
you talking
Instagram
to the
into Instagram to
no,
Threads or
so
Threads to other
no, no,
platforms?
threat. So, say for example, you are on a blog and you're using a tool to help share that post to other places, like going from the post to Twitter to whatever, you will very rarely find Threads as an option to push out that content to. And it's so interesting because I use Threads so much that I always notice it. So I think it's the weirdest, most
It's the
interesting
API.
thing
Yeah.
ever. Yeah.
A lot of
So
people haven't
that's
integrated the API.
they haven't, well, they just haven't updated the share thing to your API, to your point. So I notice it a lot on posts or other platforms where they're sharing content to another place. Threads isn't the option. Now, other content that Angela didn't bring up, but I'm going to bring up, I stream shows. Like I watch shows. So I am watching Alien Earth, which is wildly good.
I said
So
Netflix
good
and
that
Hulu.
it is so good. Huh?
I said Netflix and Hulu.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay. I missed that. I missed
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah.
Alien Earth. I have Apple TV, which, quite frankly, Apple and Peacock, weirdly have some of the best independently developed projects, hands down. Like there's no contest. I don't understand it, especially with Peacock. But there's just really good shows. So I watch a lot of that. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love podcasts. I'm a person who really enjoys podcasting. I'm starting to enjoy some video podcasts. I specifically absolutely love The Pivot.
She's
The
gonna be on
Pivot
YouTube.
is
She's gonna want to be
the
on
one
YouTube.
thing. No, no, listen. The Pivot is the one that I'm like, they just do such a good job. I just
Wait, is that
love the
Scott
comment.
Galloway, Prof G or whatever, Professor G?
No, there's three very handsome. You know what? Let me just not start with that.
Oh,
Let's.
you talking about the pivot, the sports, with him
Yes,
and
Oh, I
yes.
know you're talking about
Brad
with
Pitt.
Ryan or whatever his name is.
I've got it. Ryan Clark, Fred Taylor,
Yeah,
and Channing
Yes,
Crowder.
that's the
yeah, I know
anime
you're talking about.
podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely love that podcast. I feel I love that it's three black men. I love their age actually. I love they don't talk crazy, that it's very thoughtful, that it's very interesting. I may not always agree with what they're saying, but I really, really enjoy that show. I like the production quality. It's just so
Joe said,
interesting.
I'm
What
also
is
single, if you want
uh,
to.
I think they're all very happily married, which actually I also
They're
love,
football
right?
players. That doesn't.
Black love, okay? They're booed ups with somebody. I'm not saying if someone's single, I wouldn't mind, but I feel like they are married, okay?
Michelle said, do you have a
I love them.
brother, a cousin? Hello.
If they're as nice as you know what I mean? So I love the pivot. And I will say that one of the podcasts I love is one that you were on this week, which is the Tech John. One of the most important things that I'm doing in my consumption of like independently developed content is making sure that by the end of this year for my Spotify replay, because it really upset me last year, that I have as many Black creators in that recap as I possibly can. I want to make sure that I'm making sure that I'm deliberately and purposely supporting, listening to, and enjoying the content that we're creating, and that is a huge value for me. So yeah. Hey guys, I have to go in like 2 minutes because I have to call my mom before she flies
Okay.
Okay. Well, my content consumption is very disappointing. I'm on I am on Facebook trolling. I am
Oh,
on
what
Threads
are you,
trolling.
79?
I'm on Threads trolling. My YouTube is a complete and utter mess of just terrible. I mean, I use it for a lot of educational stuff. So, like when I want to learn something, I'm watching videos and listening. Like especially when I'm walking to the bus or public transportation, I'm downloading on there. But it's a lot of ignorant stuff on there. I get in these little weird. I get
Yeah,
to
you
these
do.
little
Yeah.
I get to these little weird things of like content, like I might go for a week where I'm just watching all these cop videos about like interrogating people and stuff because it's
Oh
just crazy to
God.
me. And then I'll get into this other. Then somebody will send me something, and I go down that rabbit hole, or I go down this rabbit hole where I'm like watching how something is made for like 2 weeks. Um, I don't watch a lot of TV. So, but when we before we got on here, Michelle, when you logged on, I was watching. I'm rewatching The Foundation because the new season came out.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
I
don't
totally have to
remember
do that.
any of it. So
Yep.
It's like me watching it from the beginning again. I just finished watching Severance, which was a pain in the butt. Um, it was a, I don't know. I don't see the big deal over it, but that's another
I
conversation.
haven't.
So, but my main consumption, as if you follow me on anything on Instagram or my thread, is movies, and I've seen like
Mm.
about 60 movies, over 60 movies so far this year.
You've
With
seen
a
a
couple more.
lot this year.
Yeah, like I still got like two movies I'm seeing this weekend, and I got I got my tickets to see Back to the Future in October. So like I have finally get to see that on the big screen. But that's my main thing. What's been heavy in rotation for me is every night I'm watching Empire Strike Back or the Batman.
Okay.
It's one or the other. It alternates. So tonight I think it's going to be the Batman again. I've watched that probably 10 times in the past 2 weeks. Because autism, I hang on to these things. So my
I feel that.
consumption is crazy. And then I try to read. I try to if I I have a couple books that I'm reading. If I can't read like a long one, I try to read at least one page a day.
Mm.
Um, of these books because I like to write my notes and add flags and stuff. So it helps me to process it, think about it more. But and then
I,
I'm trying to get back into listening to podcasts, but there's this thing with me right going on right now, and I think it's because I'm working on my own music, where it's like when
mm.
I have my headphones in, I'm listening to music or I'm listening to the music I already made, and it's like on heavy rotation. So I'm always going back tweaking stuff and doing that. So I have very limited time to consume audio. So it's like kind of like this urge in me is like you got to listen to your music, you got to listen to stuff you've been working on, or you got to listen to music that's going to influence you on something that you're working on. So
I
that's it.
hate to mention this. I forgot to. I didn't mention this, but I read daily. I read romances like a crazy person, and I have a romance pen name. So I read a lot of romance actually, and I listen to a lot of music. And one of my favorite things with music, actually, um, Threads is a huge part of why this happens, is discovering Black artists or brown who record music in a genre that people think they shouldn't, right? So like, alt rock, but not alt like right, but like alternative rock. Or like, you know, like all these different like country or whatever, like all these different styles of music that you're like, wait, they're Black? I love those artists. And so on Threads you see them all the time. So yeah, I read a lot of books and I listen to a lot of random ass music and it's great.
You forgot to tell him your
Yeah.
pen name. You forgot to tell him your pen name.
Okay, so I'm gonna say goodbye because I've talked to my mom. So we're gonna wrap this up. He's trying to. I'm never gonna share my pen name. I'm not gonna slip. Sorry, not gonna slip. So everyone, thank you for joining us. If you could again share the show, that little share button at the right hand corner of the app, that would be fantastic. I hope that you feel seen. We are clearly consuming a lot of content. I think that the end statement would be have guardrails or boundaries around that so that you can move forward on the things that you're trying to do. My name is Michelle Jackson. I run Creators Getting Paid. Um, I ask people how they make money. That's it. Angela?
Hey guys, I'm gonna try to make it quick. I'm Angela. I write Please Hustle Responsibly and Melanin MVP. Marcus, that is cruel. That is rude. That is just the worst way to end this right now. Do not come for me.
Dang. Oh my
That just
God.
messed up my whole night. I have nothing else to say. Corey, please get me off here so I can watch the game.
Marcus bringing the smoke.
I mean, I know. My name is Corey Gubbs. I'm the founder of Black Podcast Association and Black Pod News, which you can find right here on Substack platform. Thank you guys for joining us. And I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation.
Let us know. Give us feedback on the replay, okay?
Not you,
Bye,
Marcus.
guys. Yeah, oh, I got to talk to my mom. Bye bye.
All right, y'all. Have a good night, everybody.